Anna Repkina was born on the 24th of September, 1989 in Russia. Growing up surrounded by caring parents, she absorbed the values of kindness, honesty, and respect from childhood. Her family created a warm atmosphere for her, allowing her to feel secure. However, her interests went far beyond the usual routine. She was fascinated by stories about distant countries, studied their culture through books and movies, dreaming of someday discovering new horizons. Reality, however, dictated its own terms. After graduating, Anna chose a stable path and became an accountant. The job provided her with financial independence, but did not bring the sense of fulfillment that she would have liked to achieve in life. Despite professional stability and confidence in the future, Anna felt that something was missing in her life. Her career was successful. Her work provided her with financial independence, but personal happiness remained elusive. Her attempts to build strong relationships with men time after time ended in disappointment. Someone avoided serious commitments, someone did not share her views on the future, and someone simply did not take the relationship as seriously as she did. Each new acquaintance began with hope, but in time the difference in character, goals, or attitude to life made itself felt, and another connection was broken. As the years passed, the loneliness became more and more palpable. Friends and acquaintances built families, raised children, shared joyful events related to family life. Anna was sincerely happy for them, but at the same time she felt more and more alien in this world. She often wondered, why did everything work out for others, but not for her? She wanted love, sincere understanding, support, but there was no suitable person near her. Over time, she came to the conclusion that her chances of meeting a soulmate in her familiar surroundings were slim. The future no longer seemed predetermined to her. It depended on her own decisions. It was then that Anna turned her attention to dating sites. She liked the idea of communicating with men from other countries. It opened new perspectives for her. First of all, it was a chance to meet a man who could share her aspirations, values, and dreams. But no less important was the other side, the possibility of moving, which she had been thinking about since her youth. She saw dating foreigners not just as a way to find a life partner, but also as a door to a new world, where perhaps her destiny awaited her. Anna felt that she was ready for change, even if it required courage and determination. In the spring of 2016, Anna met 26-year-old William Hargrove from Oregon online. Working in IT, he gave the impression of a confident and reliable man. Their dialogues quickly became regular, gradually moving from text messages to video calls. Hargrove seemed sincere and interested in a serious relationship. He talked about a stable life in Oregon, his desire to build a strong family, and his willingness to take responsibility for his partner's future. Anna felt that this man shared her views and values. After a few months of communication, Hargrove suggested that Anna move to the United States. Realizing that she was facing a chance for a fresh start, she accepted the offer. Preparing documents, buying a ticket, saying goodbye to her family, all this took place in an atmosphere of excitement and hope. The first weeks in the United States became a time of hope and new opportunities for Anna Repkina. She flew to America in the spring of 2017, inspired by dreams of a happy family life and a confident future. The relationship with William Hargrove developed rapidly. Romantic walks, discussion of joint plans, talks about the wedding. Anna shared her happiness with friends and family, sending photos and telling how lucky she was. However, soon everything changed. At first, the change seemed imperceptible. Contact with family and loved ones became less regular. Anna, who used to send daily messages and pictures, began to write less and less often. From the beginning of April, her replies became one-worded and then stopped altogether. Her mother initially tried to find an explanation for this silence. Perhaps her daughter was busy preparing for her wedding or adjusting to her new life. However, time passed and anxiety grew. Attempts to call remained unsuccessful. The phone was disconnected. Social networks, where Anna used to actively publish news, froze. No one who knew her could say where she was or what was happening to her. Weeks passed, but Anna never made contact, and soon the worst fears of the mother were confirmed. On the 17th of April, 2017, a local resident went for a walk on a country road near the town of Alsea, Oregon. The area was sparsely populated, sparse farmhouses, dense vegetation, and tall thickets of grass swaying in the slight breeze. The man walked at a leisurely pace, enjoying the solitude, until his attention was drawn to something strange by the side of the road. At first glance, it could have been a discarded garbage bag or old clothes. As he got closer, however, he saw that in front of him was the body of a woman. She lay unmoving, her clothes dusty and her face disfigured by a terrible wound. A single shotgun blast to the head left no doubt. This was premeditated murder. Numb with horror, the man, with trembling hands, pulled out his cell phone and called the police. The police and criminalists who arrived on the scene immediately began to examine the area. The perimeter was cordoned off, and investigators began analyzing the evidence. Initial findings indicated that the murder was planned. The first important point is the method of execution. The use of a 12-gauge shotgun indicated that the perpetrator was not only prepared for violent action, but was not afraid of noise that could attract attention. Such weapons are rarely used in random attacks because they are difficult to conceal and leave a large amount of evidence. In addition, the nature of the headshot indicated an intent to finish the job, eliminating the possibility of a random conflict. There were no signs of struggle on the victim's body, suggesting that she had either not resisted or had been killed elsewhere and later moved. This was confirmed by tire tracks found by the side of the road, indicating that the body had been brought here. This indicated that the location was not the murder scene. The perpetrator had chosen this stretch of road to dispose of the body. However, the most disturbing fact was the absence of personal belongings on the victim. No ID, no phone, no bag, nothing that could immediately establish her identity. It looked like an attempt to delay the identification process, which indicated the killer's motives. He clearly wanted to buy time. However, the method turned out to be far from perfect. The criminalists promptly took fingerprints and sent them to be checked against a database.
Benton County Sheriff's Office has identified the victim as 28-year-old Anna Repkina.
A few hours later, it became known. The victim was 28-year-old Anna Repkina, who had recently arrived in the U.S. from Russia. For investigators, the discovery came as a surprise. Usually, the victims of such crimes were locals, but this was a woman who had just started a new life abroad. Investigators began looking into her recent movements and contacts. It quickly became clear that shortly before her death, Anna had moved to Oregon to live with her fiancé, William Hargrove. The first weeks of her stay in the U.S., judging by posts on social networks, were filled with joy and optimism. However, then things changed. She suddenly stopped making contact and was found dead a few weeks later. The investigation was narrowed down to possible motives. Robbery was ruled out. The perpetrator did not leave the body in a secluded place, but instead left it in plain sight. The version of an accidental attack also seemed unlikely. The criminal had obviously prepared in advance. The most obvious hypothesis remained: a murder motivated by personal relations. Since Anna knew almost no one in the United States, the attention of investigators immediately focused on the person with whom she lived. The only one who might have had a motive was William Hargrove. When investigators began to look deeper into William Hargrove's life, they made a startling discovery. There was another woman in his life. Her name was Michelle Chetwood, and she wasn't just a casual connection, but his longtime lover. Their relationship began long before he met Anna Repkina, but Hargrove skillfully concealed this fact from both women. When he began a correspondence with Anna and convinced her to move to the United States, he did not tell Michelle or Anna herself. Perhaps he expected to keep the situation under control, hoping that he could continue the double game. However, the reality turned out to be much more complicated. Anna, unsuspecting, arrived in the United States, dreaming of a new future. But the truth about Hargrove quickly came out. Michelle found out about Anna's existence, and it was a serious blow to her. She was not going to put up with the appearance of a rival and demanded from Hargrove to make a choice. And this choice had to be in her favor. Investigators examined the correspondence between Hargrove and Chetwood and found a number of disturbing messages. In them, Michelle insisted that he deal with the situation, letting him know that she would not tolerate such things. She wrote, "You have to decide who you want. You can't leave her here. Deal with it." These phrases did not directly call for murder, but they sounded threatening. Investigators asked an important question: did Michelle Chetwood push Hargrove to kill? Or did he himself realize that he could not get out of the situation and decided to get rid of Anna? The theory that Hargrove might have killed Anna under pressure from Michelle seemed quite plausible. Chetwood wasn't just jealous. She was demanding action. She may not have wanted to directly order the murder, but she manipulated Hargrove, pushing him to the limit. The investigation looked at two possible versions of the crime. 1. Hargrove killed Anna because he was afraid of losing Michelle. He realized that if he did not get rid of Anna, his relationship with Chet would collapse, and then he would be left with nothing. 2. Hargrove went ahead with the murder out of fear of exposure. If Anna found out the truth, she might not only break off the relationship but also go to the police, which would put him in a difficult position. Whatever his true motivation, the fact remained the same. One of the women ended up in the grave, and the other under investigation. Michelle Chetwood's role in the story remained in question. The investigation had to determine whether she was an accessory to the crime or simply an emotionally unstable woman who had pressured Hargrove. Another nuance remained. Did she realize how far her lover would go? Perhaps she was simply pressuring him, wanting Anna out of his life but not realizing that it would lead to murder. Or perhaps she knew what Hargrove was pushing, but hoped the crime would never be solved. After police determined that the weapon used to kill Anna Repkina had been purchased by William Hargrove just days before her death, investigators began looking at him as the prime suspect. However, they were in no hurry to apprehend him, and decided to first gather additional evidence to confirm their hunch and see if anyone else was involved in the crime. The investigators hoped that if Hargrove felt threatened, he might start making mistakes, become nervous, or try to get rid of evidence, which would simplify the investigation. When police arrived at Hargrove's home, he greeted them calmly, with no sign of panic. He stated that he was willing to answer questions, but did not seem to realize the gravity of the situation. During the first interrogation, which took place at his home, the investigators asked him when he had last seen Anna Repkina. Hargrove said that they had broken up a week ago, and Anna allegedly said that she was going to return to Russia. According to him, he had no contact with her after that and did not know where she was. Investigators closely observed his behavior, recording even the slightest changes in his voice and gestures. When they informed him that Anna had been found dead, he paused briefly before responding. This moment did not go unnoticed, as such a reaction is often characteristic of people hiding the truth. They often need a moment to consider their next steps. Hargrove expressed surprise, saying he knew nothing about her murder. But investigators continued to ask questions about his relationship with Anna, possible conflicts, and other people who might have been involved in her death. Hargrove asserted that Anna had little contact with anyone in Oregon other than him, and did not know of anyone who might have wanted to harm her. Knowing that Hargrove would probably not admit to the crime in the first interview, the investigators moved on to more direct questions. One of them concerned the purchase of a gun. Hargrove admitted that he had recently purchased a shotgun, but attributed it to a desire for his safety. However, he was unaware that police already had documentation that this particular weapon had been used in the murder. Investigators also asked where the weapon was now located. Hargrove hesitated and then stated that it was missing. According to him, he had left it at home but could not find it. This explanation seemed dubious to investigators, especially since the murder was committed with the very shotgun Hargrove had purchased. The investigators then showed Hargrove the paperwork for the gun purchase and asked why he had not reported it missing to police. Hargrove tensed nervously, but continued to insist he had nothing to do with the murder. Nevertheless, investigators now had a clear piece of evidence. The man who had last seen Anna alive had purchased a weapon suitable for the murder and then claimed it had disappeared. The investigators then began to ramp up the pressure, laying out the evidence in stages, each one shattering his defense. Eventually, Hargrove confessed to the murder, but said he did not mean to kill Anna, but was forced to do so because of pressure from Chetwood. He said that Michelle insisted he deal with the situation and that he was afraid of losing her. He then decided that the best way out was to get rid of Anna. According to him, he brought Anna to the woods, ostensibly to show her a beautiful place. Once they were in a secluded area, he pulled out a shotgun and shot her in the head. He then disposed of the body and her belongings, hoping she would not be quickly identified. Investigators asked if Chetwood knew of his plans. Hargrove denied that she was aware of the murder beforehand, but acknowledged that she pressed him hard. He emphasized that Michelle did not demand that he kill Anna, but literally insisted that he deal with the situation. Despite all this, he was charged with murder in July 2018. After William Hargrove's confession, investigators decided to question Michelle Chetwood, the woman who, according to the police, had pressured him and could have pushed him to commit the crime. The correspondence between them contained threatening phrases in which she insisted he deal with the situation. However, the investigation needed clear evidence that Chetwood was not just voicing her displeasure, but was actively involved in the preparation of the crime. When she was invited for questioning, Chetwood did not resist, saying she was ready to answer any questions. She appeared confident and collected, but investigators immediately noticed that her words were insincere. During the interrogation, she was asked questions about her relationship with Hargrove, her knowledge of Anna Repkina's existence and their correspondence, where she literally demanded that he resolve the situation. Investigators read her phrases in which she said she didn't want to share him with another woman, and asked her exactly what she meant. Chetwood did not deny that she wrote it, but clarified that they were just words spoken on emotion, and she did not intend to realize them. She assured that she did not give Hargrove any instructions and did not suspect that he was capable of murder. The police also checked her alibi at the time of the crime. Cell phone data, surveillance cameras, bank transactions, and witness statements were examined. None of this evidence indicated that Chetwood assisted Hargrove in any way in the execution of the crime. She did not purchase weapons, participate in the planning of the murder, or help conceal evidence. In addition, Hargrove did not claim that Michelle knew of his intent to kill Anna. He admitted that he felt pressured by her, but emphasized that she did not tell him how to end the relationship. Investigators tried to identify possible hints of her knowledge, but nothing concrete was found in the case file. Despite public debate about her influence on Hargrove, police were unable to charge her. The phrases in her correspondence did not fall within the legal definition of incitement to murder, and alibi was confirmed. William went on trial for the murder of his fiancée in October 2019. When William Hargrove's trial began, the courtroom was filled to capacity. The case caused a wide public outcry and was followed by both the press and ordinary citizens. The murder of Anna Repkina shocked not only her family and friends, but also the people of Oregon, because it seemed senseless and cruel. The jury faced a serious choice: to find Hargrove guilty of premeditated murder or to believe his defense, which argued that the crime was the result of emotional stress. From the outset, prosecutors said they intended to prove that Anna Repkina's murder was a planned act of violence. Prosecutors emphasized that Hargrove acted in cold blood, that he had enough time to abandon his intentions, but he still carried the plan through to the end. The motive, in their version, was his connection to Michelle Chetwood.
Prosecutors say 27-year-old William Hargrove killed Repkina after a love triangle that went wrong.
The prosecution's case was based on the fact that Hargrove didn't just kill Anna in a fit of emotion, but purposely got rid of her for another person. This fact made the crime especially premeditated, and the prosecutors demanded the strictest punishment: life imprisonment without parole. Prosecutors emphasized that all his subsequent actions only confirmed his guilt. He did not report her missing. He tried to cover his tracks. He acted as if nothing had happened. Hargrove's lawyers tried to present him in a different light. Their strategy was to soften the image of the accused. They argued that he was under stress, under pressure from Chetwood to deal with the situation. According to the defense's version, Hargrove was not a cold-blooded killer, but rather a confused man who was in a difficult emotional situation. His attorneys tried to convince the jury that there was more tragedy than calculation in the crime. The defense built their line on the fact that Hargrove was not violent, that he had never committed a crime before and had no criminal record. They also emphasized that he cooperated with the investigation after his arrest and eventually pleaded guilty. Hargrove's attorneys tried to portray him as someone who didn't know how to handle the situation and made the fateful decision under pressure, but prosecutors didn't give them a chance. Despite the defense's best attempts to soften Hargrove's image, the judge and jury were not convinced. During the trial, it became apparent that his act was conscious and deliberate. When the jury retired to deliberate on the verdict, the room tensed. How long would it take? Would they argue for a long time? However, the deliberation took only 2 days, indicating that they had no doubts. When the verdict was announced, everything became clear. William Hargrove was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The judge noted that Hargrove had the opportunity to recant the murder, that he thought through his actions, that he was not in a state of passion, and therefore his crime was premeditated. Thus, despite the attempts of his lawyers to make him look like a victim of circumstances, the jury and the judge unanimously concluded that he knowingly committed the murder and should be severely punished. Following the announcement of William Hargrove's sentence, the public was shocked. Multiple people who followed the case could not understand why Michelle Chetwood was not convicted. Numerous discussions on social media, on forums, and in newspapers boiled down to one question: why Chetwood, who played such an important role in the crime, was not punished. However, the judge, after listening to all sides of the case and considering the available evidence, clarified his position. He acknowledged that Michelle Chetwood did play an important role in the events leading up to the murder, but emphasized that her actions could not qualify as direct incitement to the crime. According to the judge, while her behavior could be considered morally responsible, it was not legally criminal. The judge noted that Hargrove was still the main organizing figure in the murder. He himself purchased the weapon, planned the murder, and carried it out. Despite pressure from Chetwood, the defendant was an autonomous actor who was aware of his actions and made his own decisions. The court noted that Hargrove was the organizer and executor of the murder, and he was not deprived of the will or ability to change his actions. Public reaction to the court's decision was mixed. Some agreed with the court's findings, believing that, purely legally, Chetwood could not have been convicted of a crime that another person had committed. Others, on the other hand, protested, believing that her moral responsibility for the murder was much greater than the court reflected. They argued that without her manipulation and pressure, Hargrove might not have decided to take such a step. Legally, however, the public debate did not change the situation. Chetwood remained unconvicted despite her obvious indirect responsibility for the tragedy. The Anna Repkina murder case was a tragic example of how tangled personal relationships, jealousy, and pressure from one person can lead to irreparable disaster. The story began as an ordinary romance. A young woman moves to a new country in the hope of a happy life, but instead becomes the victim of a cold-blooded crime. William Hargrove turned out to be a man who could not cope with his own desires and commitments. He led a double life, simultaneously maintaining relationships with two women. And when the truth began to come out, he chose the most horrible way to fix the problem. In the end, Hargrove planned the murder himself, deliberately committed it, and tried to cover his tracks. The trial of this case demonstrated the important line between moral and legal responsibility. Although society condemns people like Chetwood, the court could only act within the confines of the law. Hargrove received a life sentence, and Chetwood remained free. This sparked a debate about whether she could be considered innocent of what happened. The story was a reminder of how dangerous blind love and manipulation can be. Anna Repkina came to the United States with a dream of a new life, but fell into a death trap from which there was no way out.